Today we have Jason Bondi on the Binmucker Podcast. Thank you for joining us today, Bondi.
Happy to be here in the Chep studio. This is quite the setup for you folks at home. We have just such a diverse amount of assets across this office. We have a few paintings right here. Were those done professionally?
My grandma did them, and she has a professional, so yeah, I guess you'd say
those are absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
We have some merchandise from Connor's alma mater behind him.
Rombos, tops, yes sir.
And then, of course, we have some festive decorations up as well.
You gotta have the stocking for Christmas. And the New Year, Happy New Year. Crazy to think 2022. You blink and from when this pandemic started to now.
It is, man. That's the first time I've heard 2022.
It's crazy to think, yeah. It's like 2020 and 2021, obviously been 2 years. It just like almost feels like 1 year, you know? Like,
yeah. You ever feel like years go by quicker as you get older?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I feel like as a kid, you have that structure of you got the summer break and you have the winter breaks, and you know you were looking at what grade you were thinking about it so much, and you look back and you're like, damn, that went by fast. But in the moment, as a kid, you know, it was such a clear, like, you realize when you were going through the years, and as you get older, it's almost like it starts to get muddled. And
yeah, I think that's partially like your brain kind of comprehends time differently as you get older.
Does it? I didn't know that.
I don't know. That's my theory. But I think more so, and you kind of touched on, it's like you kind of inherently have those bookends, like when you're in grade school and then in higher education. Then when you get older, unless you're like changing a job every year, around the months of like September and June, then everything kind of coagulates together. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you look back on a year, it's like, holy shit. It's like 3 months ago. And the time just kind of morphs and bends into like any type of conclusion you're trying to make from it.
Agreed. It is nuts to think how absurd it is that we even get to live. You know, the question always gets posed, like, is there life outside of this planet? And the fact that we have like the technology we do and can have a podcast here, and
yeah, it's nice too how finite life is, and like how ephemeral it is, that it's very humbling. You know what I mean? It's like if you're like on the sand and looking out into the ocean, you know?
Exactly. Like the statistics, like the likelihood that we would be here and now, and living this experience where everything we have is so small. Like, I have no idea how small, but just like such a minute number.
It is, man. It's so humbling. Like, we get so wrapped up in just bullshit and discourse that, like, in most cases is all engineered to kind of bring out like the tribalistic nature in all of us, like us versus you. I don't know, man. I feel like if you instill that ephemeral, whatever the verb is of that, in children when they're younger, and you are able to convey that, like, you only live once and this is it, slow it down. That's kind of the only way, in my mind at least, to be able to, I don't know, have a future that's beyond us versus them.
Children have such a beautiful way of looking at the world too, because they don't put all their preconceived biases on things. And
for sure.
I'm curious, what does ephemeral mean? I'm not
like fleeting. So like every second that goes by is just another tear in the rain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's constantly fleeting, like time, every second.
Yeah, I feel like it's so hard. A lot of times, I think as an adult, you start to feel like it's a rat race. You know, like, I love the company I work for. I love the people there. But sometimes just like being in kind of a corporate setting, I just feel like it is, it can just feel almost pointless, or just like I don't know, like an existential feeling, like a feeling of nothingness sometimes.
Sure. I mean, in a lot of ways, it is futile. But that being said, money's definitely not everything, but it's one of your primary tools. You know what I mean?
Especially in today's society, you know, we have to think long term to be successful. Whereas, you know, you think back to the hunter gatherer days, we were literally, it was all like getting ready to hunt, getting ready to kill things. You never know where your next meal is coming from. You had to think like very short term. And in modern day society, like the tools at our disposal, like obviously with money, you see what the elites get away with, like the fact that Justine Maxwell could get convicted of this crime and not a single one of her customers was convicted. And obviously we know a lot of elites or, I mean, it's crazy how powerful the tool money is. And not to bring everything back to Bitcoin, I feel like sometimes I do. Like my girlfriend always jokes I always do too much, but
well, I mean that's a testament to how applicable it is. You know,
you fix the money, you fix the world. I've heard it said by many great minds, and it's like it's such a true statement. If you have this thing where like you give humans the urge to print something that, like you said, is such a powerful tool to get human time and attention, of course it's going to get used, no matter how good of intentions someone goes in with. Like a lot of times they get corrupted, and then and there are like some few, but there are some incredible politicians out there. But I feel like a lot of the time, just people go into that realm and they get corrupted, and it's like there's still a lot to happen for Bitcoin to become a global reserve currency. But it just seems like that's the most hopeful thing for the planet, the best thing, a system that no one has a special advantage on, a system that anyone can join and leave at will, a system that encourages green energy innovation. Because you create you monetize that energy, you can mine Bitcoin for super cheap, and then a lot of times, since you can monetize the infrastructure to build that, you can create energy and send it to the grid and help like places you see in El Salvador do it now with the volcano, literally selling bonds, building huge infrastructure, like building a Bitcoin city right around this volcano where they are mining Bitcoin. It's super exciting, and it's also discouraging to see just how much debt is in the system. And I know we need the military, but it just seems like we're spending so much money and just going into more and more debt. And the politicians need to learn to balance the books and not just keep printing to oblivion, because we can't do that forever, or bad shit's going to happen, it seems.
100%, man. So I read this, it was a tweet a few days ago. I think these are the correct numbers, but feel free to fact check me after. The US has printed $4.2 trillion since 2000 and after this past year, last 2 years, the US has printed $4.2 trillion. Prior to that, the US printed $4.2 trillion from their inception to 2003. So that's 2 years against more or less the inception of the US.
Yeah, 40% of US dollars in existence were printed in the last 12 months. I think I saw something today on Twitter. It was like 7 trillion since, I think, 7 trillion in 2020 and 2021. I mean, just
so the numbers are a little off, but it's again, it's
too much.
Indictment to
yeah.
Sure.
You think like what our grandparents talked about being able to buy back in the day with like $1, like going to the movies for like 10 cents. That sounds absurd today.
Yeah.
Because inflation is one of the things that compounds. You know, like we had the official number was 6.8% inflation, right?
Yeah, but they make their own criteria.
Right. Don't even get me started on that. But let's go with their numbers. 6.8%. That is nuts. And that's not like, it's like, so like, all right, what are we going to see here now in 2022? And it's not like the number gets smaller, you know. Not to shit on Biden, but like he put out a tweet, like the White House put out a tweet, and it was like, talking about how great it was that gas prices went like down like 10 cents, like a number, and it was like but you didn't even account for the fact that they had gone up like an even increasingly large number. It's like this math is backwards. Like it's not like we're going to hit 2022 and inflation resets. Like we're already at the standard. Now we got another thing, another year coming up.
Sure.
I know they said they're going to taper, but
it's all relative. And these things haven't changed in price to produce them. It's the dollar that's changed, right?
Yeah, because there's way more dollars in circulation because they got to bring liquidity to the market so people's retirements don't tank. But Bitcoin is the only thing that fixes this. Yeah.
So elaborate a little more on that. How do we remedy retirement?
That's a good point. I mean, I don't want to see people's retirement accounts go to zero, and obviously, like a lot of other nations hold dollars, like or U.S. Treasuries, like American bonds. Obviously, I'm biased. I think Bitcoin's the only answer to fix that. Like, have the U.S. embrace Bitcoin and put it on the Fed's balance sheet. I feel like we're still a little bit away from that, but I hope El Salvador continues to be successful implementing a Bitcoin standard and other countries follow suit.
It's a model, right?
Like Bitcoin or
El Salvador. Yeah. See if this is successful, if we can extrapolate this stuff.
Yeah, and it's like the first time a nation state has adopted Bitcoin as a currency.
Right.
Like
it's a prototype we drive on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of criticisms of their Chiva wallet, but nevertheless, like the fact that they were doing it, and that so many people have been able to get on the network, and even if it is KYC, know your customer, which I think when you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, almost everyone gets convinced after going down the rabbit hole to hold their own keys. But it's so cool that El Salvador gave away $30 of free Bitcoin to all their citizens and implemented it and are now doing a Bitcoin city, which I could be wrong, but I think there's like no tax on anything, like no property tax, no nothing. Like there's only a 10% sales tax when they transact, but there's no other taxes like property tax, income tax, capital gains tax for using Bitcoin, which is awesome. Like exactly the model you want to see. And there's just so much debt in the system that funds this war machine. Like I've said it before, governments just have a monopoly on violence, and the only thing backing fiat currencies in the world is these militaries, like this full of faith and credit in our governments. And it seems like governments around the world are becoming more authoritarian, which is a shame. And using this pandemic as an excuse to grab more power and let's say you give them an inch, they take a mile. It seems just like there's a lot of corruption in the system, and I think Bitcoin is the most truthful, honest, decentralized, permissionless way to store, send, and receive value from others. The code, the network doesn't give a shit who you are, what your ethnicity is, what your political beliefs are. It just
works. That, but it instills trust, which I think is the most important thing. I think government officials should view it as that as well, right? Like they want to,
we say, but absolutely,
right? They want to alleviate. They want to minimize. They want to minimize anarchy and the thoughts of overthrow, the motivations and galvanizations of bringing people together and overthrowing the government and their institutions entirely. So it's like, okay, how about instead of having these people do shady shit where no one can see them, what if Nancy Pelosi has to make her investments through a decentralized exchange, right? So we can see
in real time, yeah. And I know they have to report, and I know people were joking on Twitter because she just got all the call options, but the fact that I don't know. Like you said, it should be done in real time. People should be able to see. We should just have more transparency and honesty in the system.
And then there's it preempts an audit. It's proactive. And right now, where everything's so speculative and reactionary that here are all of our cards.
Yeah, literally preempts the audit because anyone without a third party can go and audit the code at any time, 24/7, 365, which is we can go on and check the blockchain and
media.
Yeah, and that's why I need to look into how to start doing this podcast over an RSS feed and because you can literally crowdfund. See people like Matt Odell, There's many others like that are trying to are using crowdfunding on their podcast, having people stream them sats over the Lightning Network. Like there's so many applications you can create off of Bitcoin's layer one network that are and are going to continue to change the world for the better.
Which is great, man. And such a, I know you're a libertarian, so reflective of that stance because, okay, man, the government doesn't do anything right. Let's rely on people to fund other people that do things right.
Yeah,
It's such a microcosm of how things can be in this world where the government doesn't overreach and overstep. And you can apply that to so many different areas, man. And like that's why I think Social Security is a necessity to some extent, but it's like, okay, how about I save my own money because I'm disciplined and I have this discretion, and because it's an important quality in action that everyone should take. And it's like, yeah, are you gonna leave the people that don't save for their retirement dead on the street? It's like, I don't know if there's a right answer to that, but
dude, you saw Anderson Cooper talking with Bill Gates the other day, and Anderson Cooper suggested to Bill Gates that what if we withheld
Anderson Cooper, sponsored by Pfizer.
He literally said to Bill Gates, what if we held people's Social Security until they got vaccinated? And Bill Gates is like, oh, I mean, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
it's like,
that is crazy. I didn't hear that.
Like, that's
horrifying.
That's an evil idea, man. Holding people's, like, I don't. That's wrong. Like that is not okay. And
it's not their money. And I mean, again, that's so emblematic of all their processes. It's easy to give away money and to withhold money when it's not yours.
Absolutely. That's why I think Bitcoin is so important, because it's money people can hold themselves. You know, one thing I was thinking today is like governments are important in the sense we need them for infrastructure. We do need like a military to some degree.
Sure.
There are many things we need, and I am very grateful our government relies on and provides on. And like, I love the ethos of the United States of America, like individual rights. And it just seems like Big Brother, you know, it's like you're seeing people get banned on platforms like Twitter. Like, you know, I'm trying to use Tor browser the other day and I can't use YouTube because YouTube wants to know who I am so they can keep fine tuning their algorithm. And that's just
right. Which, like, dude, you mentioned the ethos of the United States, and obviously the headline is freedom, but we're so, and I mean, I think it's more of an indictment and a frustration towards like myself and others, but like we have no opportunity in our life to actually exercise freedom. And so it's like having an employer that says, okay, there's unlimited PTO, but here you have a shit ton of work and your superior needs to approve your PTO. It's like, how am I supposed to exercise this if you know how expensive it is to live and how many institutions there are that are preventing you from actually doing things that don't benefit themselves? So it's like, what's freedom, you know?
Yeah, and like back to your point, like I feel like you fix the money, people are resourceful, like we're smart creatures, and we will band together. And like in most cases, the private sector will do a better job than a bunch of bureaucracy. And I know to some degree we're always going to need governments, but I feel like you said with the truth, like using Bitcoin, if we fix the money, so many problems in this world would be solved if it was such a much more open, honest, transparent system. Anyone can audit at any time.
Sure, man. And I think there's a lot of overlap between that and recontextualizing taxes. So it's not, okay, here's my money, government, take it. You distribute this to places where you feel it needs to be allocated, versus, okay, now I have a different thought. It's, okay, maybe here's an idea and it's more applicable for a utopian world, but it's, let's minimize taxes, and then I don't know, hopefully I believe that most people are good. So allow them to use their own discretion to allocate that money in areas where they feel need it most. And what I mean by that is, I consider myself like a big tipper. for people that are providing services. I'll donate to areas where, I want to see that money go. And there's a statistic, and I'm not sure what the actual percentage is, but there's a linear relation or an asymmetrical relationship between increasing taxes and then amount of money that's spent on charity. So and I used to be in the camp of like, okay, taxes are great. Like, I mean, in theory, taxes are great. Like, you walk around, even Boston, like, there's a lot of homeless people on the street. Like, I don't think that there needs to be millionaires and billionaires while people are on the street. But it goes back to one of your points. It's like, why should I trust the government with anything? Like, who's going to do more with that money?
To see what those funds are going towards exactly.
100%.
Who's getting what? And
I like having autonomy over my money and where I consider the taxes should go. And I think a lot of people, the more cynical outlook on that would be like, okay, how are we supposed to trust these people if we're not sitting on their money? But I like to think that there are more good people than bad people that are going to make better decisions with that money. Because, like, dude, Amazon, we've talked about this before. It's not like Jeff Bezos who's like eluding, who's evading taxes. It's the institutions that are set up and the policies and the guidelines that are allowing him to do it. So, like, we demonize these big institutions and corporations and conglomerates. And more often than not, they usually are pretty evil. But let's force their hand and let's actually prevent them from being in a situation where they're not paying taxes. Like, they're just hiring the best people to defend them and find those tax breaks, right?
Oh yeah, you think like they scream tax the rich. All these politicians scream tax the rich, and it's like, with the whole Elon Musk situation. Like, I'm not even advocating for Elon Musk here, but like, it's very unfair that Elizabeth Warren would call him out on Twitter and say, like, he paid $11 billion in taxes, which is like, I'm pretty sure it was $11 billion, which is like a record. Whatever the number was, he paid a record amount of taxes. And people are calling him out, and they call, so they also called out Kruger or something for like price gouging. It's like they literally showed their profit margin actually decreased, even with the price increases. Like, their profit margin went down. I think it was like from 2.7 to 2.4%. And it's like, it's not that these people, it's like, this is what happens when you let someone print money because they have to inject liquidity into certain markets to make sure that everyone's retirements don't tank. Because pretty much almost the vast majority of bonds are yielding negative on a nominal return basis, meaning if inflation's at 6.8%, and the interest on the bond, so the extra amount of money you receive for lending out your money, let's say it's at 4%. If inflation's at 6.8%, you're yielding a 2.8% return, or a negative 2.8% return. I'm sorry, on a nominal basis, which is like horrible. Who's going to lend out money if they know they're locking in a negative return if you factor in inflation?
The headline shouldn't be tax the rich. It should be incompetence and ineptitude. But it's much
make everything open source. The headline should be open source at all. Make everything.
Sure, man. It's the same concept as like defund the police. It's like, oh man, that sounds sexy, but it's like, I don't think so. Fund the police more. Just have them go through the proper training.
Amen. If you pay the police officers like $100,000 a year, I know that's way more than they make now.
But make sure they're good.
It would incentivize the best and the brightest people. Same with teachers. Like, same with firefighters. We should pay all these people way more. And it's like, it's a fine line. Because I don't advocate for paying. I don't want to have people have their livelihoods taken away. But it seems like there's a lot of jobs who get paid way more than they deserve, and we should be giving teachers, firefighters, like, open source all that shit. Come to consensus that this is what all these really important jobs have these people get a respectable salary. And like I said, we hire the best and the brightest, and society would improve. Like, people shouldn't be afraid of police officers, but in a lot of cases, like, one bad apple can spoil a bunch.
Yeah.
You see horrible things happening because you get, police officers don't get paid enough. Same with teachers. And
Right.
like you said, if it just hiring the best and the brightest, people who know how to de-escalate a situation, not make it way worse, would do wonders for society. And it's a shame that they don't get paid more.
We have this perception on like what job constitutes a high salary, and it's so insanely backwards.
Yep, agreed, 100%.
So you mentioned that El Salvador, everyone received $30 worth of Bitcoin.
If they signed up for the Chiva wallet, which was the Know Your Customer government issued wallet.
See, that's awesome, man. And it's like, so the stimulus check in the United States was like everyone's given like $1,200 something, or like if
There
you
was
make
two,
100
wasn't there? Wasn't there like a $2,000 one? It was like there was a good bit of stimulus.
Yeah, right, but it's cash, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, and then what do people do with that money? Everyone's in a shitty situation. So the people that are dirt poor, that's nowhere near enough money for them, but it's a start, right? Like it allows them to buy groceries for that month, for that night rather. Rather like if you're like someone who like doesn't need that money immediately, so it's like, oh man, I'm gonna put this in savings. So that money's just going in a bank. The whole idea for that stimulus check is to do something to it that's gonna render a change. So I mean, like, can they compel people to put that money into certain places? No, not especially. But like, I think kind of all of our rights and the I don't know, like someone in your position, it's like, oh, let me put it in Bitcoin.
Well, I wish I had done that. I wasn't dumb. I wasn't that smart. I used it for other shit, which I regret. Because if you had put that 1,200 into Bitcoin, it would be worth I think like 3-4x, like a very vast, a much better store of value versus the dollar, which compared to the if you had just held that stimulus in cash until now, which I know most people didn't. If anything, they also claimed the supply chains were broken when they just flooded people with cash. A lot of like bullshit consumer stuff was also bought, and it just obviously led to inflation because you just flood people with money like that. Like that's not like as shitty as it would have been. The best thing probably would have been to do nothing, and I don't know. Then the market.
And then best case scenario, what you put it into the economy. You buy shit, right? So, okay, nice. This is just promoting more of some of the terrible effects of capitalism. So it's like, here's $1,200. Yeah. Instead of putting this towards something that's sustainable, here, like if you already have money, that's like, oh, go buy like $900 worth of clothes and then go to the bar for the other $300 tonight. Yeah. So it's like
100%. It's promoting the worst of things. It's not like there are, I'm sure, some people who invested it or did wise things with the money, but I think the vast majority of people, like you said, just spend it on consumerist bullshit.
Yeah, including myself. Like I have no idea where mine went.
Same, 100%.
It just went like into the well. But I mean, switching gears. New Year's was yesterday. Do we have any like goals or any resolutions for this year?
This year, get a whole Bitcoin, 100 million Satoshis.
Okay.
It's a large task, but that's the goal.
What are the steps in place? Because that's the headline. That's the crystallized vision. Like, what are the micro steps in that?
That is a great question.
So is it like buying less shit, only kind of like identifying the essentials and eliminating the rest? Yeah. To put that excess money into Bitcoin? I think that is part of it, having to do that, trying to figure out how to stream this over the Lightning, Yeah. So lots of people, I go back and forth because I think Bitcoin is is the only cryptocurrency that can become a global reserve currency that has a chance at really changing the world for the better. And this whole Web3 thing with like other tokens, like, obviously, there's value there. Obviously, a lot of people are seeming to use it, and I do see some cool things going on. But I think I don't know. I go back and forth because like
I don't want to say just Bitcoin only, even though I do believe Bitcoin is the only one that has that chance of becoming a global reserve currency.
So let me ask you this: do you think Bitcoin is the only coin that is going to have mainstream value sustained over the next decade? And you think all these other kind of small fish in its way, are these just always going to be a cult? Like this is just going to be used on like the Reddit underbellies for like tipping people.
I think that's exactly it. Like if you think like, all right, what's going to be here in 100 years? I can confidently say with cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin's the only one I'm like, fuck yeah, Bitcoin will be here in 100 years. Every other one, even Ethereum, which I think has like a lot of use cases, a lot of people are using it. It's the second biggest. Like, I don't know if Ethereum will be here in 100 years. Like, they have a foundation. They're more centralized. You know, you saw Ethereum get hacked at one point, and they rolled back the chain, and now you have Ethereum Classic, which was the OG Ethereum, and Ethereum, which is the one that is the most popular, obviously, and the most valuable. That chain got rolled back. That could never happen in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You know, the longest chain is the correct chain. All nodes are in consensus about that, and if someone tried to roll it back, that chain would be a hard fork. It wouldn't be the Bitcoin blockchain. It would be something else because all nodes just come to consensus that the longest chain is the correct chain. And I think off that, you can provide so much value and transparency. But I do see some cool stuff, honestly, with the whole NFT things. And I don't think anyone should treat that as investment advice, but you can go to Vegas and you can gamble your life's worth if you want. You can buy lottery tickets, like not shitting on those things at all. I just think that's how you should kind of treat NFTs. Like, buy it because you like the art. Don't buy it because you think it's going to be a great investment. And I think Bitcoin really is like the best store of value in the world, and everything else is just noise and super cool. And they're building a lot of cool applications. But I do think that is an important distinction to make, at least in my personal opinion, as I've gone down the rabbit hole. Is like Bitcoin is the truth. Bitcoin is the GOAT. There is no second best, as Michael Saylor likes to say. And then I like these other applications. Like I like making NFTs and minting them on the Polygon blockchain, which I think is Ethereum. I need to understand the technical details of that. I need to do some more research.
I think it's a layer 2.
Exactly. That's what it is. Polygon is a layer 2 of Ethereum. And I like drawing on my iPad, you know, making JPEGs and exporting and fucking around. But I swear, the more I go down this rabbit hole, at least personally, the more I'm like, yeah, Bitcoin is it. Bitcoin is like everything, and then all these other things are just cool stuff to play around on. And
is it Bitcoin or is it the technology of Bitcoin?
Well, that is the argument, and that's
this is just like the lunar eclipse where like the moon and the sun both overlap. Like this is the sweet spot.
I think it's like the argument of decentralization, because Bitcoin is truly decentralized and anyone can join and leave the network at will. And the only thing that the nodes have to agree on is that the longest chain is the correct chain, and no one can go back and change that. And these other platforms, like even Ethereum, like the second best, like, you know, Ethereum is the Scottie Pippen and Bitcoin and it's Jordan, like, but he's not, you know, Ethereum's not Jordan, and like Ethereum's chain has had to be rolled back, and it is more centralized in the sense the founders have like the vast majority, and Ethereum's done a lot of cool stuff, providing a lot of value to some people, obviously, but Bitcoin is the only one that, like, at least as of 2021 and seemingly continue to 2022 now, seemingly continue to grow. This chain's never been hacked. It is the longest running. The founder, Satoshi Nakamoto, has never been found. His coins have never been moved. It has a fixed supply issuance that hasn't changed since its inception. And, you know, there's been all these hard forks, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV. None of them are Bitcoin. You see, like, where all the value seems obviously to accrue to Bitcoin, the one that's almost $1 trillion asset at this point in time. And the fact that Ethereum's chain has been rolled back, like I said, I think it's provided value to some, and I think it's cool, and I think there's use cases, but I just don't think, ultimately, if it were to become a global reserve currency, nothing is stopping from Ethereum becoming corrupted and losing that decentralization. And with Bitcoin, nothing is, it won't, unless someone is able to do a 51% attack on the network, enroll. It would, and at what point they could essentially do the equivalent of bouncing a check, like not have their transaction go through. Like it would take so much time and resources to like mine, and at that point too, you think like, why would they even want to do that? They would just delegitimize the significance of the Bitcoin blockchain, and they would be much more likely to just take profits because they're mining Bitcoin trying to have that attack. It's like they might as well just take the rewards of mining the Bitcoin and sell it on the market. And just like the way Satoshi, who no one knows who he is, no one found the founder of Bitcoin, he just kind of disappeared. The way he aligned the incentives of this thing so it would truly be decentralized, and as it grows and continues to be stronger and stronger, become more and more decentralized and resistant from any one party withholding transactions or fucking with the network.
That's a true vigilante. That's like,
I mean, bro, what like
that's like putting on a mask and saying just like that's like a real
for vendetta shit.
Yeah,
to have the humility to walk away from this thing, like to release this thing. In today's world, everyone's going to judge you for something. I don't care how immaculate you think you are. The media just has a fucking way of getting under and like attacking people for their faults. And Satoshi said, you know what? No, I'm just going to disappear. I'm just going to never to be found. And all you can do is judge him for the merit of his work. And to date, he has created the most decentralized, open, honest, transparent system anyone can audit without a third party, that anyone can use to send value to anyone else in the world. Like, this is more revolutionary than the internet, which was incredibly revolutionary. Like, think about what the internet has allowed us to do. Like, without the internet, we wouldn't be able to do our job. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, the internet has changed everything. And I think I really think Bitcoin is going to keep changing everything, like, to a more open, honest, transparent system where the market can be the market and we can listen to what it's telling us rather than a group of central bankers deciding when to taper, when to print money, when to do certain things. Like, let the market decide. Let the free market reign. I mean, not that capitalism has some merit. Capitalism has some shitty parts from it, but the one thing that seems that I do really approve of capitalism is like, let the free market decide, and let's let the free market decide. Like, let's embrace Bitcoin. Like, Bitcoin is hand in hand with the ethos of the government. Like,
see, so why doesn't the government, like, we're capitalists, why doesn't the government allow crypto to flourish?
Because you think, I mean, it's like
it's like going back to Batman, same reference. Like, it's what happens when an impenetrable force meets an immovable object, right?
Yeah, and you think it's going to play out, but like, you still think we're so early. Like, Bitcoin has just become this macro asset. Like, 2020 was the year it passed $1 trillion market cap. You know, you think gold is a $10 trillion market cap. And I was actually like, my girlfriend was like explaining to me, she's like, there's more things to life than just Bitcoin. And like, she's going on this tangent, and like, it got me thinking about like, why do people value gold? And she was actually talking about, it's like, how fucked up it is sometimes that governments can just take money or like devalue the currency or whatever. And throughout time and history, like, gold has been one thing that people typically know there's a market for it, and people are willing to buy and sell it, and it's outside the government's reach. And
why is that? It's finite, it's tangible.
Yeah, I mean, exactly, because it's like, it's got a finite amount. Like, I think it's not exactly, but roughly 2% has been coming into circulation every year, and people just commonly regard it as something of value. You know what I mean? Like, and not that it was an easy market, but like, typically someone would value gold as like a great store of value and would take it. And you think now, like, gold wasn't divisible. Gold wasn't there, especially back before technology. It wasn't like an easy market to just go around and like, you kind of had to barter and shit. But Bitcoin is literally digital gold backed by power and open source software and hardware working together. That is just like, at this point, seemingly become more and more an incorruptible asset. And I am hopeful that come like by the 2024 election, the opportunity cost to be against Bitcoin will be too big to ignore it. Mm-hmm. But I think up until this point, a lot of powers that be, a lot of the elite people in the world think like, oh shit, like, this Bitcoin thing is out of my control. Like, this might seem crazy to some, but the United States government outlawed gold in the 30s. I forget exactly why, but like, they literally like just confiscated people's gold and shit, like went to their homes. And in the U.S. and Bitcoin, like, if you keep your own private keys, like, you really can't confiscate it. Like, technically you can put a gun to their head, say like, but
It's pretty beautiful, man. To like finally have
the most unconfiscatable, easy way to transfer value in a permissionless manner. That with the market, is liquid 24/7, 365. So think about trying to sell your gold. It's kind of you had to find someone who would take it, or you had to find someone who you could barter with for various services. And like, say you wanted a steak, but the guy was like, "Look, I got 3 cows, and that's what I'm willing to trade for your gold bar." And it's like, fuck, I don't know if I want 3 cows. You couldn't divide it up. Like with Bitcoin, you can divide it in any manner. There's a market for it at all times. You can sell it for fiat. Like you got to put it on an exchange, which a lot of times to know your customer, but still. There's typically a market for it, or you can just exchange that value to someone else using the Bitcoin network, and it's done in a permissionless, decentralized manner. And over time, like I know this asset is incredibly volatile in the short term, but over time, if you had held this asset for like at least 4 years at any point in time, you would be up tremendously on what you put in. So it just seems like as this thing gets priced for the first time, I really hope the U.S. wakes up and realizes, like, damn, like this thing can help us so much. And the fact China banned it, and now that China really fumbled the bag with that, because the fact that they banned it, and now the majority of the mining power, the hash power, the energy being used to secure the network, because you think what's happening is like miners are mining using power to try and hash a function, and when they get the correct answer to that function, showing they've done the proof of work, use all this energy to get it, you got to use this specific hardware. So for anyone to even try a 51% attack, they have to buy like this $10,000 ASIC, hook it up to some form of energy, and then connect to the internet. And when they get that thing right, they can add a block to the blockchain. And if they have 51% of that power, they could kind of fuck with that block. But at this point, it's like to get that much power, it's become it would take probably every government in the world colluding together at this point, and it's only going to get stronger, but it would take every government colluding together to try and like fuck up Bitcoin. And I think that kind of scares the powers that be. Like some of these elite people, it's like, why I can't fuck with this asset. It's not like it says like, Jason Bondi sent X to Connor Chep. It's like XY23 sent whatever Bitcoin to someone else. And just the fact that it's like that open and honest and transparent of a system and pseudo-anonymous is it's just so beautiful. And I really do hope the world embraces this standard and uses it for a more truthful, self-sovereign, great world, because it is more responsibility holding, your private keys. And like, it's just like, it's such an incredible thing that allows us to store value, send value.
That's what's so attractive of it. It's like, no one likes being told what to do. You know what I mean? And it's okay. So I hate the idea of my money, the fiat cash in my wallet, to be diminished by the government whenever they want, right? Change the inflation. Now my dollar's worth 6% less of that.
Yeah.
And so having autonomy over your own assets is like, it's symbolic of the ethos that we were just talking about of this country.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's great to see some senators and congressmen.
It's been diluted,
Yeah. And you think too, like, because of inflation, most people in our generation are priced out of housing. All they can do is rent. Like trying to get a car. I never thought a car is an asset, but it's typically an asset that depreciates every year. My car appreciated like $4,000 or something after I put 20,000 miles. I bought it right in the beginning of the pandemic when used car places were like trying to sell their cars for cheap because no one was renting. And then I get at this point, it's literally appreciated $4,000 from what I bought it from originally, which is, I mean, great for myself, but just kind of ridiculous if you think about it.
Sure.
Like something like that. It just seems fix the money, fix the law.
Especially that wasn't produced in the United States.
Yeah. Crazy.
But you mentioned embracing crypto and adoption. I'm curious, does like a Coinbase reveal the demographics
Coinbase is KYC, so they're your customer. So I don't know what they do on the back end, but they have all that data, and there's like reporting requirements now.
Yeah, I'm curious how many people own wallets like from this quarter to last, and I don't know, over the last few years, and then of course their ages too.
Yeah.
I think would be like the most illuminating out of that is you anticipate or you expect the primary adoption to be from, I don't know, like probably like 24 to like 38 years old. I'd be curious, and I think the most kind of emblematic of those numbers would be like folks that are like already, I don't know, kind of established, and ones that have actually come to accept something that was so foreign such a short time ago. So like even like 40, 45, 50-year-olds, right? And I think that would be such a great indication as to like how this is actually being perceived out of this market.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. You think like who's really going to appreciate the price of Bitcoin is like when like boomers come into the market and like start to trust the system, and because I mean what sets the price of Bitcoin is game theory and just people valuing it, and like typically like I think you're right, it's probably the younger demographic who's like, yeah, screw it, like that's why you've seen like things like Doge and Shiba and all these coins appreciate, is because the Fed just pushes people more and more out on the risk curve as they print money and kind of do all these wonky things, if you will, and it's just becoming so clear we need something that has a fixed supply that can't be tampered with. And I'd like to know those numbers too, exactly like how many people have Coinbase wallets and this and that. But
yeah, I'm curious like how the influence, since NFTs have become more thrust into the mainstream, and then meme coins too.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure that's increased adoption. Do you think that's for better or worse though? Do you think people are seeing like their Shiba investment go up a shit ton of money has been good for crypto, and then down a lot of money? Have they just abandoned it completely?
There's always like, you always see the main articles like, oh, Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. And you think if you made money from any of those like Shiba, I guess in Bitcoin, but I think Bitcoin is different. But any of those altcoins, if you made money, you essentially just made money off other people's risk. I don't think any of those coins, like they can be centralized, they can be, the powers that be could definitely do some wonky stuff. Every single one of those like Bitcoin is the only one that can be fucked with. And I'd be very curious to see too, like how many people actually understand, and you think there are Bitcoin people who keep all their Bitcoin on exchanges, and at that point it's just like an IOU from the exchange. Like you don't actually hold the keys to your Bitcoin. It's like the same thing with gold now. Like you can buy an IOU for gold. You don't actually have to hold the gold. Think how like expensive and hard it is. Problem with that though, and it's the same dilemma with Bitcoin. It's like, say you have an IOU for gold, shit hits the fan. You're going to the bank, you're like, give me my gold, and they're not letting you in the bank because it's kind of the same thing. Like I don't think it's gonna happen, but say like shit were to hit the fan and you like try to use your Coinbase app and you couldn't get in for whatever reason. If you don't, Coinbase also has the private keys, and Coinbase is better than Robinhood because at least they'll let you send and receive it.
Sure.
But they also have access to that and could theoretically cut you off from your Bitcoin. And if you have just an IOU, like on a Robinhood or a SoFi, if you just have the IOU, I mean, I have some on SoFi. Like I do think there's like, I have a tiny bit, but I think the best thing to do is like, and I had to get more and more comfortable with having my own wallet, but actually keeping your own private keys to yourself. And I think in the long run, like once you go down the rabbit hole, that's so much more valuable. That's like the value prop of Bitcoin. And I'd love to know how many people on Coinbase just keep it on their Coinbase app. Coinbase actually has an app called Coinbase Wallet. That's a software wallet you can keep on your phone and write down your private keys, and it's self-custodied, or it's non-custodial. So you only hold the private keys to that. And there's a ton of different apps out there, like MetaMask is used for Ethereum and NFTs. And to answer your other question, I think NFTs have a use case. I think a tokenized world would be cool in essence, but I do wonder, it's like, is that taken away from value that could be in Bitcoin? But I think ultimately the thing to remember is all these other coins will be priced in how many Satoshis can I get Satoshi being the smallest unit of a Bitcoin, how many sats can I get for my altcoin? Like Bitcoin is the unit of account. Bitcoin is a store of value. Bitcoin can be a medium of exchange, especially with applications like Lightning Network. And I think all these other coins, they can kind of do some of those three things, but only Bitcoin can be a unit of account, a medium of exchange, and a store of value. And while it gets priced initially, for the first time due to game theory and people kind of embracing Bitcoin as a global reserve currency, it's going to be damn volatile. But over the course of time, like if you look at the 12 yearly candle, this asset I think has had like out of 12 years has had 2 down years, and the rest of the time, I mean, it's just up.
That's wild. And now, what percentage is it up all time?
I mean, I can look that up right now. It's crazy now. I mean, what did it start at? 0? Like, I guess in the beginning, there weren't even enough exchanges to price it, but let's see. Bitcoin all-time chart. Max.
And now, how were you able to purchase Bitcoin early on?
So there's like an exchange called Mt. Gox. There's actually a really great documentary called Banking on Bitcoin. It was the first thing I ever watched on it in 2017. I'll send you a link to it.
Yeah.
I might even put in the link to this podcast. If you look at the all-time chart, it's up 14,403%. And that's, it says the price is 47,427 now. And it says plus 47,100. So you think this is starting with Bitcoin at 327. That's not even starting with Bitcoin at 0. You start with it at 0. I mean,
yeah, that's astronomical.
I mean, it's just a crazy chart. Like look at just up into, and obviously like shit ton of volatility. But I think more and more people are starting to see the use case of Bitcoin. It's cool. People can have podcasts like this and have a voice and put it on the internet. And but now that we finally have a decentralized, permissionless, no single point of failure system to store, to send and receive value, it's going to change the world. And I hope over time it also starts to be used as a unit of account, so people kind of start pricing their life in Satoshis rather than US dollars or Australian AUD or euros or.
Do you think the volatility of it discourages a lot of people?
Absolutely. Especially
we've seen it go down 20K in the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're very right. I think especially like until you go down that rabbit hole, you become convinced like this is the best store of value on the planet right now. That's a great point. Like I use stable coins even like that run on Ethereum, USDC. I use the Coinbase debit card because I get cash back in crypto and I want to get more sats. So I guess in essence, like that's what I mean. Like Ethereum does have use cases, but I just think, what was your original question? I kind of got sidetracked.
Is if no, I mean you hit the nail on the head. Is if the volatility of Bitcoin discourages the involvement of some people, and I think more so it's
if you don't have stake in the game, if you haven't taken the time to research it and understand why this is the best store of value on the planet, I think that volatility can really upset you and really make you think like, say you were a boomer and you put in $69,000 and Bitcoin hit the very top. And next thing you know, like you said, we're down to 47,000 roughly as of now. You're thinking, fuck, like I just lost $22,000. Like that is horrible. I don't think many people bought like the exact tip top, but that's a really good point. It is kind of discouraging to those who don't take the time to understand it and having stake in the game and kind of seeing that value go up and down. And
I think a way to reconcile with that is to not get in it as a gamble, to not make more money, but to actually believe in the technology that powers it.
Yeah, learn about it.
It's a whole
post your own wallet. Yeah, hodl. 100%. I completely agree.
But I mean, I'm very pessimistic that. So what drives me kind of insane is that the metaverse, Web 3.0, and crypto and Bitcoin are all being conflated. So it's okay because you see this bullshit all on Instagram. It's like Nike's joining the metaverse. they just rolled out this crazy NFT sneaker. And then you look at that and it's like, what the fuck? I want to stay as far away from this like virgin shit as possible. Like NFT sneaker. Like, get the fuck out of here. So I think that there needs to be kind of partitions between each of them. Because I mean from the casual kind of follower looking on the inside from without, they're just like, oh man, this is all the same. Like, fuck these NFT, which is fine if you think that way, that things that aren't necessarily tangible, that are trying to replicate something tangible, like NFT, like art or something, is like not cool and doesn't hold any innate value. So I think that must be a threat to it, right?
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because like you got like, I don't know, at least from what I've seen on Twitter, my personal experience, you got people in Web3 who are rightfully so kind of like, oh, fuck all the corporate bullshit. Like, I like Nike, but a lot of people are like, screw Nike, screw Adidas. Like, I don't want to deal with that. And you got other people, like the CEO of Twitter actually resigned and now just is the CEO of Square. I really like the guy, Jack Dorsey. He's kind of shitting on all this Web3 stuff. Like, it's really not decentralized. Like, he's got a point. Like, you got people in Web3 saying, "Oh yeah, we should stay away from like it shouldn't be the corporate verse, it should be the metaverse." And like you got people arguing that, and you got Bitcoiners who are saying like it's not even decentralized in the first place. Like it's not decentralized like Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin is the only truly decentralized, the best chance we have at something becoming a global reserve currency, a medium of exchange.
Right. Like, so it must be offensive for someone like you to be so passionate about decentralized technology and Bitcoin being the headline for that, to hear like Ethereum or like some of these other alt networks be conflated with Bitcoin, because it's not truly decentralized, right? It's a step in the right direction, but it's not.
Amen. And I see that on Twitter. I see like these Bitcoin goats who I love and respect and think are like just so many helpful people online who like obviously are pushing their own agenda, but like I've really appreciated their thoughts and insights into Bitcoin, and it's helped me think about it. Like you said, at the same time, like Bitcoin is a very volatile, incredibly volatile asset right now. And like I'm using USDC on Ethereum blockchain, on Coinbase's platform, all these third-party systems that are centralized to transact, and I'm getting money back and using it to buy more Bitcoin. So it's like, I see there's some merit to these other chains and they like are helpful. Like it's kind of cool that I can get 4% back in crypto on my Coinbase debit card for using USDC and end up with more Satoshis in the long run. Disclaimer, instead of getting 1% back in Bitcoin, I get 4% back in Stellar Lumens, transferred into Bitcoin.
So that equates to 1%.
Or like even the Stellar Lumens I get like 4% back in whatever I spend. And if I were to get Bitcoin back, I would get 1%.
Okay.
So I just transfer my Stellar Lumens to Bitcoin after a certain amount of time. But that's like, I think, great that I can use Ethereum's platform. But yeah, I think when people try and conflate, like you were saying, like the whole, oh, it really is decentralized. Like, yeah, there's no single point of failure. It's like that's kind of bullshit. Like,
right.
It's almost like a security. Like I like crypto more than I like securities, but you know, you got to think honestly a lot. Like even Ethereum, because it's got a foundation. You got to think of it as like, you know, I think of it as like Apple stock. Like it's a blue chip crypto. Apple stock is a blue chip equity, a blue chip stock. Like, and Bitcoin is the only decentralized form of money. And I don't want to shit on these other Web3 things because I do think some are great and I like them. But I just think, like you said, way too many people are conflating the two and saying like, yeah, Bitcoin and ETH are equal, or Bitcoin and Web3, like it's all decentralized. It's like, no, Bitcoin is decentralized. And then there's everything else, which is just optimizing for different stuff. You know, you can play in those things. You don't have to hate on them just because, you know, the Bitcoin goats are saying screw Web3. Like you can still use it. It's just, I think the mistake is people trying to say, yeah, we're as decentralized as Bitcoin, because it's not even close.
Right. So the next step here is increasing adoption, right? So how do you feel like that's the most efficient way to get from point A to point B? Is it modifying the technology? Is it lowering gas fees? Or is it increasing the amount of influencers that push it? Like,
keep in mind, Ethereum, only Ethereum you pay gas fees. Bitcoin,
okay, right. No, I guess I'm doing the conflating, but But like it's nice that we have like the Mark Cubans, the Elons, Michael Saylors that are on the forefront of that vanguard to actually push it and kind of bring it a little bit more to the mainstream. So who's the next, I guess, subset of people outside of like these entrepreneurs that you think would have the biggest impact in pushing it?
Oh, shit, we got the brave audience, so it shouldn't be an issue. I think you see some influencers doing it, like pushing it in a positive way online. But I think even like Michael Saylor is the one saying like there's no second best.
Would it be political powers, like people that I don't know, just citizens inherently trust?
But you don't even have. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin. There is like Michael Saylor is buying up a shit ton of it. Elon and Mark Cuban are kind of into the Web3 thing. Like Elon loves Dogecoin, and Mark Cuban has said Bitcoin is the best store of value. But Elon and Mark are very much playing in these other markets. And from my listening to at least what I've seen of Saylor and heard of Saylor, and I kind of agree with him. He's like, there is no second best. I'm like, that's become a meme, and he's like. He's right. Like, who knows what's going to happen with the SEC regulations of these coins? And not that I think the SEC is the answer to get these coins on the right track, but Bitcoin is treated as property by the U.S. government. It's not something that they can really ever take away from every citizen on the planet. And Bitcoin is just. It's the one, and everything else is different. And I think doing stuff like this, podcasting with others, and just really getting others to think for themselves about it and go down the rabbit hole and see how truly incredible and innovative this technology is. I think that's how we create a world that gets hyper Bitcoinized or goes on a Bitcoin standard. But ultimately, because it is complicated technology, I think there will be some pain and suffering. And I think a lot of the times when the Fed steps in, it's because they don't want to see people suffer when the market is depressed or we go through a depression or something like that. But those things are necessary a lot of times. You can't just like paper over the cracks and expect everything to turn out great, or else there will be a point when shit hits the fan. And personally, I see Bitcoin as the only thing that could get us out of this massive debt trap that a lot of countries have gotten themselves in. We'll see, though. I mean, who the hell knows what's going to happen? But I think Bitcoin is very hopeful, very optimistic. I think getting others to take the orange pill is one of the best things you can do, and not just getting them to buy and like try and sell it for more fiat, but like
to learn, right?
Yeah, to learn and to think like, hey, look, you can use this thing for all these things. And I think where the world will be 20 years from now. Could be way better and way more open and honest and transparent on a Bitcoin standard, hopefully.
I agree, man.
I always like to end the Binmucker podcast by opening the floor to ask me a question about anything. It can be something as simple as what's my favorite ice cream flavor, or something deeply personal. And then,
all right,
likewise for myself.
I might have a few here.
Please.
All right. Who are the biggest frauds on this planet? And I don't mean like people in particular. I mean like occupations. Is it conductors of like a symphony? Is it pilots? Is it the president? Like, who are the biggest frauds?
I would say, and I'm not even going to give it a profession. I think it happens a lot in politics. But I think it also happens in the mainstream media. I think it happens with the executives, a lot of these big pharmaceutical companies. I think people who it's like, I love capitalism, except for the part when we start prioritizing profit over human health. Like when capitalism gets to the point where like we're trying to make sure that a balance sheet lines up better. And I understand they have the fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, but when you purposely make decisions that will harm humans and you do it in the name of profit and growth over human health, I think it can lead to a lot of wonky shit, and I think we see it across almost all of our industries. Like, do you think McDonald's food is healthy? Do you think constantly scrolling social media is healthy? Do you think, I mean, you name the industry, right? There's so many things where it's like, it's not about our health. It's not about having healthy humans and happy humans. It's just about a number on a balance sheet. So when we check our stocks and shit, like, it's number of technology, and I think providing value can be so many different things. Like I think the Austrian school of thoughts on economics, where like everything is subjective, and people determine value based on like the merit they see in it, is such a better school of thought than the Keynesian one, kind of like the cap. I don't know, like the one where I just think it's fucked up when corporations put profit over the health of human beings.
Which happens extremely frequently.
Yeah, right? Like, way too often.
I mean, that's a much more methodical answer than I would have said. I mean, dude, that's what I hinted at it. I was saying, conductor of a symphony, they're just moving their hands and bullshit. Those guys are the biggest frauds. Okay, that, and then secondly, and this is a two-parter.
Okay.
What animal was the Grinch? That's one. And don't say he's a Grinch. What animal is the Grinch? And then two, I think that the Grinch, that's like, this is the fairy tale version, the one that we see. It's like the glamorized kind of PC version. But I think the Grinch is like a horrible person. I think he's like, I don't know, man. Maybe he's like a murderer, a rapist of the Who community. That's why he's been ostracized and sent up to his cave. So who's the true Grinch, and what was his crime? Because he's
I was gonna say a member of the Catholic Church. Disclosure, I'm Catholic, so
that could be it.
No, I kid. If I had to give it, it'd be like a bear, but I really died. Yeah, Dr. Zeus or Dr. Seuss was kind of like, I don't even really know the story, but I know there's a crazy story there and incredibly intelligent, but
so the Grinch was a pervert.
shit, I don't know. If you say so.
That's the pod.
But I gotta ask my question.
Please.
Best memory of 2021. Now that it's 2022. Looking back, and
this is more
of a best memory of 2021.
Man, it's gonna be difficult to boil it down, although I'll try. But last night I went out to dinner with my girlfriend Katie. We had a conversation on this past year, and we both. I mean, we're both different ages, but we both said like this has been the most impactful year of our lives, which is such like it's such a beautiful thing to go back and like ruminate on. I think any time where you go back on a year and you're like nothing's changed, then you fucked up. I think that there should be incremental changes every year. Just going back to what we talked on at the start of this, like as we get older, there's inherently less and less bookends on every year. So to be able to go back and say like, oh, I'm different this year than I was last year. And a year isn't that long a time. It's like everyone that's able to say that should give themselves a pat on the back. You know, it means that you weren't in bed for a full 365 days. The best moment of the year, man, I mean, I would have to say, December 26th. So it's my mom's birthday, and I was just with like my immediate family, so both my parents and my girlfriend and my sister and her husband. Yeah, man, that's what it's all about, right?
Hey man, spending time with friends, family, and loved ones.
100%. And like we get so wrapped up in all this bullshit, whether it's like debating on whether the Grinch is a pervert or Bitcoin or crypto. And a lot of it stems from kind of the institutionalized capitalism that we're so indoctrinated in. And it forces us to like kind of keep these blinders on from shit that actually matters and counts. So when you're given those opportunities to actually embrace those like small moments, whether they're with family, friends, or just like enjoying a nice a nice night like alone with yourself and your own thoughts and like confronting shit that you would have otherwise not liked to have done. Those are the things that like actually progress your year and that define Jason at this age from Jason at this age. You know?
Amen. Amen. And the problem with this is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Go down the rabbit hole so you can orange pill your friends and family. Learn to spend time with them. Cherish those things because that's what really matters. You know, Bitcoin's great and all these things, but spending time with friends and family is what's truly going to make you happy.
That's real currency, right? That's decentralized.
Decentralized friends. That's
Yeah.
I like my money decentralized and I like my friends decentralized. I like being able to spend my money in a permissionless manner, and I like being able to travel and visit loved ones across the country. And what a great thing that we were able to do. And it's like, you know, and we kind of the beginning of this was kind of a little all over the place, but like the idea is like, how lucky are we? How grateful are we that I am very grateful that we can do all these things. And
it is, man. And now I'm thinking out loud. I just had this thought. So I think friends are more or less decentralized, but family is very centralized. Right? Right. So you're born into it,
you can pick your friends. But
this is who you're with, for better or worse.
Yeah.
I don't know. Leave it on that.
That's a great point. That's the pod. Thank you for coming on, Bondi. It's been an absolute pleasure.
The Chep Podcast. This is only episode 1.
Yes, sir. Fucking right. What a pod, man.
That was awesome.